In the 1960s and early 70s, the idea that a kid could turn on a top 40 radio station and hear a song mentioning Montreal, or any other Canadian city for that matter, was pretty much unthinkable. The airwaves belonged to Americans and Brits, and that was that. Then things started to change, and our next guest was part of that change. Singer-songwriter Gino Vannelli had hit records here and abroad, won multiple Juno Awards, and was among the first homegrown popular music stars. He's still at it at age 66, which means compared to the Beatles or the Stones, he's just a kid. And Gino Vannelli joins us now for more. It's great to meet you.
Good to meet you, Steve.
Delight to have you here. I totally mean it what I said in the intro there. I was 18 when that song came out.
Okay.
And when I heard that reference to Montreal in the first line...
Are you trying to say you're a kid compared to me?
I'm not. I'm not that much younger than you. But the notion that you could turn on a song on a top 40 station in Hamilton, Ontario, and hear the word Montreal mentioned was a very big deal. Why did you mention your hometown in that song?
Because that's, I mean, the song's really about, you know, an old love, you know, and I thought nothing better to say than, you know, Montreal, where I was from. And also, I think my brothers and I worked at a place called Alpert, which is, it was called 737 or 727 at the top of Place Ville-Marie, the tallest building then in Montreal. And for 3 months we worked there, and it was windows all around us. And I always remember that look of Montreal, 1970, 71, 72, looking out at the nightlife of Montreal.
But the conventional wisdom was, don't mention anything Canadian, because then you'll have trouble selling it in the States. And you didn't care.
No,
you put it in there anyway.
That to me was never, I never was a geographical kind of writer, or I never political that way or anything like that. You know, to me, whatever felt good, I thought, when I think about those nights in Montreal, rolled off my tongue like a good plate of pasta.
You know what? You get the sweetest thoughts of you and me.
Oh, God.
Okay, here's how it really sounds, the way it's meant to be. Go ahead, Sheldon, go.
When I think about those nights in Montreal, I get the sweetest thoughts of you and me. Memories of love above the city lights. Ooh, I've tried so hard to take it, but I know my heart won't make it. I just wanna stop and tell you what I feel about you, babe. I just wanna stop. I never wanna live without you, babe. I just gotta stop for your love.
Ah, that's beautiful. You were saying you remember that show?
Yeah, it was 1978, 79, New Orleans, at Municipal Auditorium.
You've still got fabulous hair, I have to say. But
Thank
what's
you.
the difference between that guy 40 years ago and this guy sitting here today?
Well, other than 40 years, I mean, I was always committed to try and put the best band together, to put the best albums together, to write the best music I could. I mean, it felt to me that was just the way to be. You know, I mean, I was born in a musical family, and it seemed to be part of our endemic religion, I guess. You know, to always make music, and there's never a day that goes by where I don't write something.
Really?
Yeah,
Still?
yeah, still.
What? What are you writing?
Oh, ideas, sentiments, titles, lyrics, poetry, sometimes a chord change. I always carry my guitar with me wherever I go, and wherever there's a keyboard, I dabble, I tickle. This album here, The Wilderness Road, it was a period of 4 or 5 years of just putting thoughts and sentiments and old stories and narratives together, and finally came out in a record. But you know, someone said they hate to see the years go by, you know, and I said, you know, when you hate to see the years go by, it's because you've lived a good life.
When you think about those nights in Montreal 40 years ago, how important, in your view, were the Canadian content regulations that radio stations had to abide by then to ensure that your stuff got played and just didn't get overwhelmed by all the stuff coming up from the South?
You know, it's a nice gesture, and I think every artist appreciates whatever advantage they can get. But you know, for me, I was always trying to compete on a worldwide basis. I mean, as far as I was concerned, there was the latest British invasion group, that I had to compete with on the radio, and I wanted to get my stuff played in New York and Los Angeles and London and Paris. So, I mean, although I appreciated it, my eye was always set up, on the entire world.
Do you think we need those kinds of regulations in place today to ensure that the next generation of Gino Vannellis get played?
If it helps. If it hinders, no. If it helps create better artists, if it tills the soil so better flowers can grow, great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't work.
There is a well-known story, which I hope you're not sick of telling because I want to hear it, about your first meeting with Herb Alpert in a parking lot where you tried to get your disc, or it wouldn't have been a disc then, your cassette tape in his hands.
Well,
how'd that go?
It wasn't really that. It was my brother Joe and I had been in Los Angeles for about 4 months, we knocked on every door possible. And Joe said we had $5 left, in our pocket, both between us. And my mother had sent us 35 or 40 bucks to help us out, but by mistake she sent it to Hollywood, Florida instead of Hollywood, California. So Joe said, we have to leave tomorrow. I said, there's no way I'm going to leave. And so I told Joe, I said, I'm staying. He said, well, you're going to have to panhandle, And so that morning, I woke up really early. I didn't know what to do, so I walked along Sunset Boulevard. And as the song says, I stopped into a church. And I needed time to think.
That's the Mamas and Papas song. Yeah?
Yep. I needed time to think. I needed away from the traffic, away from people walking by. And the church was empty. And I said, this is good. This is solitude. I need time to reflect. What am I going to do? This is the last stop. I had lived in New York for a year and a half. Nothing happened, or it almost happened, but didn't quite happen. I have been now in LA for 4 months. What the hell was I going to do? So lo and behold, I sat in that pew and I fell asleep for 4 hours. I don't know why I fell asleep. And I woke up clear as a bell, knowing exactly what I should do. And so I ran back to that hotel. I think it was called Hotel Orange. And it was actually $5 a day. And so I summoned Joe. We went to the gates of Charlie Chaplin Studios, which were the gates of A&M Records at that time in 1971, 72. And I just parked myself there, and I had no idea why I was there, but I was there. And then I saw, after 2-3 hours, I saw Herb Alpert float across the parking lot, and I said, that's it, that's what I saw. And I just dropped my guitar, ran towards him. The guard chased me, took out his gun.
Took out his gun?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and I thought, well, it might be a bolt in the back, but at least I'll get to meet Herb. So I grabbed Herb, and as I grabbed Herb, he grabbed me, and so we're all grabbing each other, and Herb turned gray, and I turned white, and the guard was livid, and because he had warned me for hours not to go through. But in some way, somehow, Herb asked me what I wanted, and I said, let me play a few songs for you, and he said to Johnny, the guard, let him go, and he said, come back in 30 minutes. And I brought my guitar back in 30 minutes. I played him People Gotta Move, Crazy Life, Mama Coco, a few songs, and Herb just lifted his head and said, welcome to the family.
Wow. And he signed you?
Yeah, for 7 years I recorded there. And that's where I Just Want to Stop was done, and all the albums in the 70s. And it was really a great association because I got a chance to make the music that I really wanted to make.
Do you have any greater insight all these years later about how that original inspiration in the church came to you, which set up everything thereafter?
Yeah. I think it's not so much the church, it's the silence. Listening for something that you can't otherwise hear, something that's in every man and every being alive, that if you can just stop the machinations of the mind, just stop all the chatter and the babble, and if you could just center yourself and just listen. And it sounds like silence, and looks like darkness, but actually in the silence and the darkness, there's some information.
Do you have any? You often wonder about the road not taken. So I wonder, if you hadn't managed to nab Herb Alpert at that moment, do you wonder about how the next 40 years would have unfolded?
I would have found some way. That's why when I give master classes, or I talk to students, or I talk to people about this, here's the lesson. It's just never, 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 never give up. It's just, it will unfold some way, somehow. You may be doing something almost right or not quite right or a little bit wrong or very wrong, but if you keep at it, you'll figure it out and something will happen. And if it's not meant for you, then you'll also figure that out. But if you know in your heart that is your road, and that's where you got to be, and that's where you got to travel upon, you keep on. You find a way to keep on.
What was the most important thing Herb Alpert, given that he was a legend in the business at the time already, that he brought to you? What would it have been?
Well, his sense of comfort in the studio. You know, don't have to prove anything. Just you know, be yourself, and to operate not from a place of having to be something, or in other words, a place of fear. So, I mean, he was a great influence because he didn't teach. He was very much like Clint Eastwood. When actors describe Clint Eastwood as a director, they say he's very much hands-off, but you get exactly where he's going. And Herb was exactly like that, very much hands-off, but I got where he was going, or where he wanted me to go.
The conventional wisdom, I think, in this country at that time was, you're nobody until you make it in the States. Did you feel that at the time?
Well, you know, that's the place where they shot rockets, right? So, I mean, if you were Canadian, or if you were British, or if you were French, or, you know, you were from Italy, it'd be a feather, you know, in your cap if you could play Carnegie Hall.
And you have.
And I have, yeah.
How was that?
It was a kick, although it's not a good place for pop music, though. It's just too live.
Do you think it's still the case that Canadians don't truly respect their artists until they make it in the States?
It's different a little bit today, because by the time the 80s rolled around and Celine Dion and Bryan Adams and, you know, all those artists came around, the producers here, the studios here, the musicians here really got to be world class. So you could make a great record here in Canada.
As you have, Wilderness Road, that's
Yeah.
your latest.
Yeah.
What's the inspiration for this?
Daniel Boone coined the word, or the title, Wilderness Road, when he was paving the way in Kentucky. New World, I guess. And I read his journals about what his life was like. And he was not one who was faint of heart. But to me, Wilderness Road meant something totally different. It was really a little bit of Robert Frost's poem, The Road Less Taken, or The Road Not Taken, and or The Road Less Traveled, I think it is. And for me, Wilderness Road was the road less traveled, the road that many people forbid you to take, your own family warn you against, indeed culture warns you against it, but somewhere in your heart you know that that's the road you need to take.
What is that road in your case?
Well, the road was to be absolutely myself, and to make the kind of music that I thought was, you know, endemic to my true nature. And, you know, many people around you want you to make the kind of music they think you should be making. Or, you know, a long time ago, you know, I had a real love of my life who didn't want me to make music altogether. And so willing to give up things because you know who you have to be. So Wilderness Road is the road I took that led me to the place, I can't say a place of peace, but a place of wonder.
Wonder.
Yeah.
My hunch is your fans would be very happy to have you tour and just play the old stuff. And they don't need you to write new stuff, but you do. Do you know why you feel you still need to create new stuff?
Because it keeps my atoms jumping. And without the atoms jumping, I don't really feel like doing the old stuff. And because I write constantly, the old stuff sounds interesting to me. So when I go back to the old stuff, I say, hey, this was pretty good. This was really good. Guys, how about we try this? Now we worked up a brand new arrangement, you know, to open up the show with Wild Horses, and a brand new arrangement of Black Cars, and this and that. And that becomes more interesting when I come up with Wilderness Road, or Yet Something Beautiful, or Older and Wiser on this record, which is, you know, again, a step up, you know, for me, because I think I've gotten better at my craft. But the old stuff becomes infinitely more interesting when you're constantly writing.
That's interesting, because not to name drop here, but I do remember asking Tony Bennett, do you not get sick of singing I Left My Heart in San Francisco? And his answer was absolutely not. It's a beautiful song and it means so much to me and to his fans. And so I'm going to ask you the same kind of question. Do you ever get sick of singing Wild Horses?
Here's the real answer. The real answer is that if you write songs that are a little bit difficult to sing, then each night is a challenge, okay? Second of all, as you get older, now your voice is changing. So the high notes, not that you can't hit them, but you got to actually exercise your voice to hit them in a certain way. And then third of all, you're playing in a different room, a different audience every night. And it's really interesting to check people's reaction. And no matter what, the sound of the hall, the ambience is a little bit different. So the song, in a sense, rejuvenates itself every night.
Do you get a different reaction depending on the night on
yeah.
the same song?
Definitely.
Really?
Definitely, yes.
Huh. And you can feel it from the stage?
Oh yeah, yeah, you can. I mean, if you're in Jakarta and you play that, you have one, and if you're in Tokyo, if you're in Moscow, you definitely get different reactions to different songs.
Can I do, you going to forgive me on this?
What's that?
Can I do something really frivolous with you right now?
I hope you can show it on TV.
Well, here's the thing. The Boston Celtics and you. See, now he knows what I'm about to talk about. Okay, you want to run this? Let's run this video here for a second, because this is something in Boston they call Gino time. And it's about you. And they show at Boston Celtics basketball games, they show this old footage from American Bandstand. And then at some point in this video, some guy shows up, and who's he got on his very tightly fitting t-shirt? He's got the guy sitting beside me. This is there he is. And listen to the fans. And every time your t-shirt shows up on the Jumbotron, the place goes nuts. What do you think of all that?
Well, I'll be very, very, very honest with you, Steve. I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
No, it was all organic, which is what made it fantastic.
You know, someone just told me about it, and it's just one of those happenstance things, you know, accidents. Someone was looking at the old American Bandstand and decided it might be a good aphrodisiac, or I guess. I don't know, you know, but I had nothing, very, very little to do with it, except just be the face on the T-shirt.
Do you, I mean, you kind of have caught lightning in a bottle as a kind of a 21st century thing. Do you appreciate that?
You know, I appreciate it, but my head doesn't seem to be there for some reason. I wish it was, but it's not. You know, right now my brother and I are talking about, you know, performances for 2021 and where we'd like to play. You know, we've been offered a tour of South Africa. We've been, you know, offered to go to China and so on and so forth. So we're thinking about things, and I'm thinking about, you know, some different projects. I already wrote 20 songs for a new record, so I'm kind of into that kind of stuff.
I totally get it, but you do realize there will be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who now know of you because of that video clip at the Boston Garden.
Yeah, but a lot of people knew Nixon too. It wasn't exactly the kind of knowledge you want, though, right?
I get you. Okay. Well, if I remember, one of your lyrics is, I just want to stop and tell you how I feel about you, babe, which I probably should resist doing right now. But can I just say what a great pleasure it's been to have you here.
It's been a lot of pleasure.
Thank you so much for making time
Steve.
for us on your show. And good luck with the tour and with the new album.
Thank you.
Gino Vannelli.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.